She thought marrying a rich man meant her struggles were over. But that mansion held storms no one warned her about. Now listen close, baby. 'Cause this story, this ain't just about pain. It's about power, too. Maybe even yours. Her name was Alana, and she walked into that white-bricked mansion with her dark skin glowing under the chandelier light, carrying her dignity like a crown. They saw the designer dress on her hips, the ring on her finger, the man on her arm. But they didn't see her soul. Or maybe they just chose not to. She's so well-spoken, his mother had whispered that first night at dinner. Not to her face. To one of the cousins after the wine had loosened her lips. You know that kind of tone, sugar. The kind where every smile cuts like a knife wrapped in silk. Racism dressed in pearls. Alana had grown up in Atlanta, raised by her grandmother on the South Side, where heat rose from cracked pavement, and dreams had to fight harder just to breathe. She'd worked 3 jobs, graduated with honors, built her own business from scratch. A black woman with ambition and grace. And when Daniel fell in love with her, he meant it. He didn't see color, he said. Didn't care about his family's old money or old ways. But love, baby. Love ain't always enough to shield you from the cold. The night before the wedding, his mother took Alana aside, in that silk dressing gown, hair pinned like royalty, a smile as tight as a noose. I hope you understand what marrying into this family requires, she said. Alana smiled back, soft, polite. I've built myself from nothing, she replied. I know what hard work requires. There was a pause, long and heavy. Well, his mother said, pouring herself more champagne. You must be used to that. My son's always had help around. Help, not fiancé, not woman, not equal, just help. Alana didn't cry that night. She laid in that big hotel bed, staring at the ceiling, remembering her grandmother's voice. Baby, when they try to shrink you, stand taller. So she married him anyway. But the real story, it began after the vows, when the gowns were hung and the guests gone. When Alana moved into that cold, echoing mansion and found that no room in it was built for a woman like her, because every hallway whispered secrets. And the walls? They remembered the hands that had once cleaned them, not the ones who now owned the keys. But Alana, she had a quiet fire. And fire, baby. Don't bow to stone. And just when she thought she could make peace with the cold, she found out about the list. A list she was never meant to see. The paper was thick, cream-colored, tucked deep in the mahogany desk of the drawing room, behind faded photos and old Christmas cards. Alana wasn't snooping. She was looking for thank-you notes. But what she found was a list titled Potential Matches for Daniel, typed, numbered, and dated just 2 weeks before their engagement. Page after page of names, white names, blue-blooded prep school names, with notes beside each one. Lily, Harvard Law, old Connecticut family. Claire, tall, elegant, blonde. Charlotte, will blend well with our circle. Blend. Not once was there a mention of Alana. Not even a crossed-out line. It was as if she didn't exist. She sat there holding the paper, her hands trembling. That room smelled like roses and old leather. But suddenly it reeked of something else. Erasure. You see, it's one thing to be hated outright. But to be invisible? That's a different kind of cruelty. That night, she didn't tell Daniel. She just watched him sleep. The same man who said, "You're all I want." The same man who kissed her hand like she was sacred. And she believed he meant it. But love can live in a man's heart and still die in his family's house. Sunday came. Brunch at the estate. Crystal pitchers, linen napkins, and silent judgments passed like butter. Alana wore navy silk, hair pressed into soft waves. She served elegance like armor. His mother, poised at the head of the table, looked her over like a garment off-season. "I hope the staff hasn't been too unfamiliar to you, dear," she said, slicing her scone. "You must know your way around such things." Daniel didn't flinch. He didn't defend. He just reached for the marmalade. That silence? It screamed louder than a slap. After brunch, Alana stepped outside, past the hedges, to the garden his mother had named after herself. And there, beneath the weeping cherry tree, she sat and wept. Not for them, not even for herself. But for every black woman who'd walked into rooms like this one and been reduced to a shadow in their own story. But baby, even shadows stretch toward the light. She pulled out her phone, opened her notes, typed 5 words, "Buy this house one day," because dreams grow roots in the soil of pain, and hers had just begun to bloom. But then the lawyer called, about the inheritance, and who was, secretly, trying to block it. The lawyer's voice was polite, measured, but Alana could hear the hesitation in his tone, like he was balancing a glass full of secrets. "Mrs. Whitmore," he said. She still wasn't used to being called that, not when every time his mother said it, it dripped with irony. "I just thought you should know. There have been some adjustments made to the estate plans." Adjustments. Such a gentle word for betrayal. See, Daniel's grandfather had left behind a legacy, one bigger than stocks and land. He was the kind of man who shook hands with dirt under his nails and believed family wasn't about blood, but backbone. And years ago, he'd promised Daniel something, a trust, a property, a future. And Daniel, in turn, had promised to share it with his wife. But now, Alana's name was nowhere in the documents, no mention of her rights, no protections, not even a clause. And the one who'd recommended the adjustments? His mother. "Of course," the lawyer sighed. "She said you two were recently considering separation." A lie, a whisper laced in silk, planted like poison ivy, in a garden of truth. Alana hung up, her knuckles white around the phone. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just stared out the window, past the rolling green hills and trimmed hedges, out to the world she was told she didn't belong in. But the thing about a woman raised in storms, she don't fold when the sky goes dark. She rises. That night, Daniel came home late. Loosened tie, distracted smile. Alana met him at the door, holding the papers. "Did you know?" she asked, her voice calm like still water over deep danger. He looked confused at first, then guilty, then small. "My mother said it was just a formality," he muttered, something to avoid complications. "Complications?" she cut in. She didn't raise her voice, no, but her eyes, sharp, wet, unforgiving. "I'm not a complication, Daniel. I'm your wife." He stepped forward, reached for her hands, but she stepped back, because love can't bloom in soil that's been poisoned. And in that moment she knew she was standing in a house built for people who thought women like her should stay in the kitchen or the background. And that wasn't a home, it was a battlefield. But before she could decide what to do next, the letter arrived, in her grandmother's handwriting, postmarked from 10 years ago. It was tucked between ads and bills, the envelope soft with time. Her name, Alana James, scrawled in that shaky, elegant penmanship she'd know anywhere. Her grandmother, her rock, the one who taught her how to braid cornrows, balance a checkbook, and walk tall in a world that bowed to no black girl's crown. But this letter, it was dated the summer her grandmother passed. A letter that never reached her. A letter hidden. Intercepted? She sat alone in the study, hands trembling, the mansion silent around her. Too quiet, like it knew a truth was about to be born. She opened it, and inside was a secret buried in love and fear. "My sweet Lana," it began, "if this ever reaches you, I need you to know there's something I never told you about your mother, about the house she worked in, about the man who owned it." Alana blinked, her breath caught. "That house, it belonged to the Whitmores, your husband's people." Her heart slammed against her ribs. "Your mother was the help there, years ago. A maid, a girl too beautiful for her own safety. I won't write what happened. I'll let your soul rest from that. Just know this, what they took from her, she never got back. But you, child, you are what they couldn't destroy. One day, you'll walk into that house, and they won't know your name is carved in its bones. Take what's yours, baby. Not with hate, with grace, with fire." Alana dropped the letter, or maybe it floated down, like ashes from a memory finally burned. She stared into the dark wood floors beneath her bare feet, and suddenly they felt different, familiar, like history echoing under every step she took. She had roots in this house, not welcomed, but written. No wonder his mother hated her presence. She wasn't just an outsider. She was a living reminder of secrets they'd buried beneath marble and lies. But Alana wasn't here to dig up the past. She was here to build something stronger. And that night, she made a promise to herself. She would own this house. Every room, every stair, every damn chandelier. Not for revenge, but for justice. For every black woman who had ever been the help in a mansion she deserved to run. And just as she was about to call her lawyer, she heard the front door creak, Daniel's voice whispering, and then a woman's laugh, soft, intimate, not hers. The laugh was quiet, barely a breeze, but Alana knew, baby. A woman knows. It wasn't the laugh of a friend. It was the kind that curled itself around a man's collar, soft as perfume and twice as dangerous. She stood still on the staircase, her hand resting on the polished banister. Below her, the grand foyer held shadows now, and one of them wore Daniel's voice. He was murmuring something, low, familiar, words he once said to her on rooftops and sidewalks, and late nights when love felt easy. But this time, they weren't meant for her. She watched the silhouette of a woman step out from behind the front door, tall, slender, white, in a camel coat and heels too high for friendship. Alana didn't say a word. She just waited. Daniel turned, saw her, went pale. "Alana," he said, fumbling. "This is Claire, from my firm. She was just leaving." Alana finished for him, voice cool as winter glass. Claire gave a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Too practiced. Too sorry, not sorry. "I was just dropping off briefs," she said. Didn't mean to intrude. Alana didn't move. You didn't. But Claire did intrude. And not just into her house. Into her knowing. Into that delicate place between doubt and truth. When the door finally shut behind Claire, the silence hit like thunder. Daniel stepped forward. "Alana, I swear nothing happened. We just grabbed a drink after the deposition." She cut her eyes to him. He stopped. "You don't have to lie to me, Daniel," she said, soft but steady. "That's not the part that hurts." He frowned. "Then what does?" "That I was your shield," she whispered. "And you still left me out in the cold." He tried to speak again, but she was already walking away. Back up those stairs. Back into the room where she kept her dignity folded, pressed and ready for mornings like this one. Because, baby, when a man shows you who he is in the dark, believe him in the daylight. But the next morning, she wasn't the one who packed a bag. It was his mother. And she left behind something Alana never expected. It was a quiet morning, the kind that pretends everything's normal before life changes its clothes. Alana came down the stairs expecting cold glances and colder silences, but the foyer smelled like travel perfume. And there, near the front door, was a suitcase, Louis Vuitton, old but pristine, the kind that doesn't roll, it glides, and beside it, his mother, dressed in beige cashmere, lips painted in a shade called Respectable Rose, the same shade she wore at the wedding when she kissed the air near Alana's cheek. Alana paused. "Going somewhere?" she asked. His mother turned. A pause. A beat. "To Italy," she replied. "A friend's estate." Of course. People like her always had an estate waiting somewhere. Alana nodded. "Safe travels." His mother reached into her purse, pulled out a folded piece of silk. It was a scarf. Deep navy, embroidered with golden vines. Familiar. "This belonged to your mother," she said. Alana froze. "She wore it once here, when she worked for us. I kept it." A pause. "I didn't know she had a daughter." Lies. Or maybe truths kept locked behind privilege. Alana took the scarf, her fingers brushing the threads. "Why now?" she asked. His mother looked away, out the window, toward the garden. "Because I know what I said to you. What I've been saying." She turned back, eyes glassy but dry. "And because one day, I'll be gone. But this house, you'll still be here. And I need you to know. I was afraid of you, of what you meant, of how much power you walked in without even trying." Alana didn't reply. Not at first. She just held the scarf to her chest and let the silence speak, because sometimes silence is a louder answer than words. His mother left without another goodbye, and for the first time since she stepped foot in that mansion, Alana stood in the doorway alone, not unwanted, not tolerated, just still. Like the storm had passed, but the air was still thick with lessons. She turned back into the house and smiled, but not because she won, because she endured. And upstairs, while folding the scarf into her drawer, she found a second envelope, this one addressed not to her, but to Daniel, and sealed with her grandmother's initials. The envelope was thinner than the last, faded along the edges, but sealed tight, like it had waited years for this moment. Her grandmother's initials were on the flap, written with the same firm stroke that once braided Alana's hair and wiped tears without a word. It wasn't addressed to her. It was for Daniel. But baby, what do you do with a truth not meant for your eyes, but buried in your story? She sat on the edge of the bed, fingers resting on the paper, not tearing, just breathing. Her grandmother had always been a woman of timing, of knowing when to speak and when to let silence work its magic. But something about this envelope told Alana the silence had done enough. So she opened it, and inside, a letter and a photograph. The letter was short, measured. "To the man who may one day hold my granddaughter's heart," it began. "If you are reading this, then time has done its work. But blood remembers." Alana's throat tightened. "The house you live in was once a place of silence and sorrow for my daughter. She was not seen, not as a girl, not as a human. She served meals, cleaned floors, and bore scars you will never know. And if you have married Alana, then I need you to understand something. She comes from women who survived not just poverty, but pride. Women who carried grace like a blade and dignity like armor. Love her wholly or leave her be, because if you break her, you won't just lose her. You'll lose the light she brings into rooms your people kept dark." And beneath the letter, the photograph, black and white, blurry around the edges. Her mother young, no more than 17, standing in front of the Whitmore mansion, eyes down, apron stained, a shadow behind her that made Alana flinch. It was Daniel's grandfather, smiling, too close. She shut the letter, pressed it to her chest. Because some legacies ain't just inherited, they're survived. She waited for Daniel to come home, laid the envelope on the kitchen counter. "I opened it," she said when he walked in. He looked at the letter, then at her. "I figured you might." He didn't sound angry, didn't sound surprised. "I want you to read it," she said. "Not now. Not for me. For yourself." And then she walked out, left him with the weight of his bloodline in his hands. But baby, that's what reckoning looks like. Not fire and fury, but choice. And the next day, Daniel disappeared. Left the house, left her a note. But it wasn't a goodbye. It was an offer. And a confession. The note was short, typed, neat, as if emotion needed to be kept in check, as if vulnerability should arrive dressed in a suit. But the words, they hit like truth. "Alana," it began. "I read it, all of it. I've never been more ashamed or more awake. My family built its name on shadows, and you walked in with light. You weren't the outsider. They were. I've signed the deed over to you. The house is yours now." She dropped the paper, sat down. The chair beneath her felt different now. Not a throne, not a burden, just hers. But there was more. "I'm going away for a while. Not to escape, but to listen. To unlearn what I've been handed and figure out what I want to build. You don't owe me forgiveness, but if you ever decide to start something new, this time on your terms, I'll be where you want me to be. If you don't, then just know I was proud to stand beside you, even when I didn't deserve to. No begging, no guilt, just a door, left open." And Alana, she didn't cry. She walked through every room in that mansion, barefoot, free. Touched the walls her mother once cleaned, touched the floorboards where whispers once curled. And she whispered back, "I'm here now." Later that night, she sat at the grand piano in the parlor, played a song her grandmother used to hum while stirring grits on Sunday mornings, a melody for survival, for women who built kingdoms out of what they were told they could never own. She didn't know what would happen next, but she knew this. The house was hers. The silence was broken. And her power, oh baby, her power was just getting started. But the next morning, a car pulled up, and a woman stepped out, black, tall, with eyes that looked just like hers, carrying a suitcase and an old photograph. The morning was still, the kind of still that hushes birds and slows clocks. Alana was in the garden barefoot on wet grass when she heard tires roll over gravel. A sleek black car, windows tinted, driver silent. Then the door opened, and out stepped a woman who made the air shift. Dark-skinned, regal, mid-40s maybe, wearing a long grey coat that kissed her calves, and a calmness that felt like thunder waiting. She didn't knock. She just walked to the gate, suitcase in one hand and a photograph in the other. Alana met her halfway, heart thudding like fists against the ribs of the past. The woman tilted her head. "You must be Alana," she said. Her voice, low, velvet-rich, edged with something deep. History, maybe. Alana blinked. "And you are?" The woman handed her the photo. Old, faded. Her mother, and another little girl beside her. Same eyes, same cheekbones. Holding hands in front of that same mansion, long before Alana was even born. "My name is Vanessa," the woman said softly. "I'm your sister." Alana stepped back, everything blurred. I don't have a sister." Vanessa's gaze didn't waver. "No, you were never told you had one." Then she opened the suitcase. Inside were journals, letters, a locket. "I found these in Mama's things. After she passed," she swallowed. "She never told me about you either. But when I saw your wedding announcement, your face, I knew." Alana sat down on the stone bench near the gate. Suddenly the ground didn't feel like ground anymore. Vanessa sat beside her, quiet. "She left this house pregnant," she said. "And ashamed. Your father, whoever he was, she wouldn't say. But my father, he wasn't kind either. She had you, gave you to Grandma down in Atlanta, and raised me in silence in New Orleans. The pieces were jagged, but they fit. Her mother's hush, her grandmother's tears, the letters she'd sent and the ones she hadn't." Alana looked at the mansion behind them, at the tall windows, the clean white paint, and she thought, this house has more ghosts than rooms. Vanessa took a deep breath. "I'm not here to shake anything up. I just wanted to know my blood." She reached into her coat, pulled out a single yellowed paper. It was a copy of a birth certificate. Alana's mother listed, same as Vanessa's. Same woman, 2 daughters, 2 different lives, and both of them tied to a house that had swallowed too many truths. But before Alana could respond, the maid came running down the path. "There's someone inside the house," she gasped. I think it's your husband." She found him in the parlor, not sitting, kneeling, surrounded by old photo albums she didn't even know were in the house. Daniel looked up when she walked in, eyes red-rimmed. "I let myself in," he whispered. "I know I shouldn't have." Alana didn't say a word. He held up a photograph. "This is her, isn't it?" he asked. Her mother, in uniform, cleaning the floor in the dining room behind a grand piano. Alana nodded. He sighed. "I went to the archives at the estate office, talked to some of the groundskeepers who've been around since the 80s. They all remembered her." His voice cracked. "None of them remembered her name." Alana swallowed. That was the worst part, wasn't it? To exist in someone else's story, only as labor, as background, as the help. Daniel stood, walked to her. "I don't expect anything from you, but I needed to see it, to feel the weight of what this house really is." He reached into his coat and pulled out a small black box, laid it on the table. Inside was the original deed, signed, notarized, transferred fully to her name. "I changed the paperwork, the land, the title, the business accounts. It's not a gesture," he said. "It's yours because it always should have been." Then, from his pocket, another envelope. "I also met with your sister. She called me first, said she needed to know what kind of man I was before she showed up on your doorstep." Alana blinked. "She called you?" He nodded. "She said if I was still the boy who let his mother mock his wife, she'd take that secret and bury it." He gave a small smile, sad. "She reminds me of you." Alana looked out the window. Vanessa was still sitting on the bench, looking up at the house like it owed her something. Maybe it did. Maybe it owed all of them something. Daniel touched her arm gently. "I'm not asking to come back. I just needed to return what was stolen." There. That night after he left, Alana and Vanessa sat side by side on the front steps of the mansion. 2 black women, 2 sisters, bound by blood, secrets, and survival. "I don't want to live here," Vanessa said. "Too many echoes." Alana smiled. Then we won't. Vanessa looked at her. We? Alana nodded. I'm not rebuilding this house alone. But the next morning the lawyer called again. A new will had surfaced. And this one changed everything. The phone rang just after sunrise. Sky still lavender. Kitchen full of silence and toast crumbs. Alana answered, not expecting much. But the voice on the other end was sharp, urgent. Mrs. Whitmore. Sorry, Miss James. It's Robert, from the firm. She straightened. We've uncovered a second will, he said. Dated a year before your wedding. Silence. Then, it was hidden in a private box at the bank, listed under your husband's grandfather's original trust. Alana frowned. I thought that estate was already settled. It was, he replied carefully. But this version names you. Her heart skipped. Me? As the primary heir. Of everything. The words echoed long after the call ended. She sat by the window with the deed in her hand. Vanessa still upstairs asleep. What did it mean? That the old man, Daniel's grandfather, had known. That he saw her. Or maybe he saw her mother. And felt guilt twisted into duty. Either way, the will was clear. To the woman who will bring truth back into this house. May she turn its shadows into legacy. It wasn't just the mansion now. It was the land, the trust, the shares. Everything the family had tried to keep in the bloodline was now resting in the hands of the very blood they'd tried to erase. Vanessa came downstairs, rubbing her eyes. Alana turned to her, slow. You might want to sit down. She handed her the letter. Vanessa read it once, then again, then whispered. Do you think he knew about Mama? Alana shrugged. Maybe, but I don't think it was about what he knew. I think it was about what he couldn't undo. They sat in silence, two daughters of a woman who scrubbed the floors of a house her children now owned. And baby, don't that sound like justice? But justice don't come without a fight, because that afternoon, the doorbell rang, and behind it, Daniel's mother. Not in pearls, not in cashmere, in all black, no makeup, no smile. Just eyes full of war. She stepped inside without a word, looked around like the walls betrayed her. I know what you found, she said. I know about the second will. Alana didn't flinch. Then you know it's done. His mother's voice shook. That trust was meant to stay in this family. Alana stepped closer. It did. She reached into the drawer, pulled out the photo of her mother, held it up. She was already here, before any of you. For a moment, the older woman's lips trembled, as if grief was fighting with pride behind her teeth. Then she whispered, You think you've won. Alana leaned in. I didn't come here to win. I came here to survive. And I did. That night, Vanessa poured wine. Alana lit a candle in the parlor. They didn't speak much. But the silence felt full, the kind that honors the women who came before. Because this house? It wasn't just bricks and land now. It was a memorial, a rebirth, and in the morning they'd begin the renovation, not just of the home, but of the name. But just as Alana climbed the stairs, her phone buzzed again. A message from Daniel, 5 words that made her stop cold. I think I found your father. Alana stood frozen at the top of the stairs, the message still glowing on her phone. I think I found your father. She read it again, and again. Each time her breath caught like a thread snagged on a nail. Downstairs the house hummed in quiet. Vanessa was still asleep, the wine glasses still out from last night. But up here, in this moment, time held its breath. She clicked the message. Daniel had sent an address, a name, and a photograph. Name, Reverend Charles Emmanuel Whitmore. Location, Birmingham, Alabama. Age, 67. The photo was old. A man in a grey suit standing at a church altar, Bible in one hand, skin the color of sweet mahogany, eyes sharp, heavy. She blinked. Those eyes, they looked like hers, and Vanessa's, and the woman in that photo from decades ago. Their mother, standing in shadow. She whispered his name like it might break her lips. Charles. The next day, Alana and Vanessa packed a single bag. Nothing fancy, just questions wrapped in cotton, and fear. The drive to Birmingham was long, quiet. Vanessa stared out the window most of the time. Alana drove like she was chasing a ghost through the trees. When they pulled up to the church, it was quiet, modest, white-paneled with a crooked cross leaning forward like it was tired of secrets, too. And there he was, on the steps, like he knew they were coming. Charles Emmanuel Whitmore, Reverend, retired, and standing there, holding a cane in one hand and a photograph in the other. Their mother, young, smiling, alive. "You're Alana," he said. His voice cracked like dry wood. "And you're Vanessa." Neither sister said a word. He sighed. "I've been waiting a long time for this." Alana stepped forward slow. "You knew?" He nodded once, eyes misty. "But I was a coward." Vanessa's voice came soft but sharp. "You let her raise us alone." His lips trembled. "I was a junior at Morehouse when I met your mother. She worked weekends cleaning houses, mine included." He looked at Alana. "We fell in love. But when she got pregnant, my family threatened to disown me, said she was too dark, too poor, said she wasn't Whitmore material." Alana felt the sting, familiar. He looked down. "I left, and I've regretted it every day since." The silence between them grew thick, until Vanessa whispered, "She didn't tell us your name." "I don't blame her," he said. "She had more strength than I ever did." Then, slowly, he reached into his coat, pulled out a folded letter. "I wrote this 30 years ago. Never mailed it." He handed it to Alana. She took it with shaking hands. "My daughter," it began. "I don't know your name, but I pray you know your worth. If I never find you, know this. You are not the mistake I am, and I hope one day you forgive me. Not because I deserve it, but because your heart deserves to heal." Her vision blurred. Vanessa placed her hand on hers, and for the first time since that mansion, they both wept together. Before they left, Charles looked at them. "I may not be part of your past, but if you'll have me, I'd like to be part of your future." Alana looked at Vanessa, then back at him. "We'll think about it," she said gently, "because healing don't happen in one afternoon." He nodded, smiled through tears. "And if you ever need a blessing," he whispered, "you already got it in your blood." Back at the mansion, night fell slow and soft, the air different now, lighter. Alana walked the halls again, this time not in grief, but in knowing. She was a daughter, a sister, an heir, not just of pain, but of legacy. And just as she lit a candle in the dining room, the fireplace roared to life. A gust of warm wind lifted the scarf her mother once wore, and her grandmother's voice echoed in her soul. "Take what's yours, baby, not with hate, with grace, with fire." One chapter remained. The final page, the portrait, the legacy, the justice. They said she didn't belong in that house, but now her portrait hangs in the golden frame above the fireplace. The renovations took months. Rooms once echoing with cold politeness now rang with laughter. The dining table, once long and silent, was trimmed down to a circle, where no one sat at the head, because no one was above anyone else. The portraits of pale ancestors were moved, not burned, not buried, just replaced. And in their place, a new gallery was born, a wall of women, dark-skinned, bright-eyed, lined with soul, her mother, her grandmother, even young Vanessa in her school uniform, smiling like she was finally seen. And right at the center, Alana, painted in soft oils, head high, back straight, a scarf around her neck and light in her eyes that no one could dim. The community came to see it, women from all sides of town, young girls in pigtails, older women in Sunday hats. They stood in front of that portrait like it was a mirror, and for the first time, they saw a black woman with dark skin, not cleaning the room, but owning it. Daniel came one evening, after hours, walked in slow, carrying flowers that weren't roses, but wild jasmine. Alana met him by the staircase. They didn't kiss, didn't reach. They just stood there, quiet. Then he said, "You turned this place into something sacred." She nodded. "You gave me the bricks," she said. "But I built the altar." He smiled. "I still don't know if I deserve to be part of it." She looked at him, deep and calm. "Deserve got nothing to do with it," she said. "It's about truth now, and truth don't ask for permission." He left the flowers and walked away, and it didn't feel like loss. It felt like release. Weeks later, Vanessa moved into the guest house, turned it into a studio for young girls learning to paint and write and scream with dignity. Alana opened the West Wing for community healing circles. a safe space for stories, for voices once silenced. She called it the hearth, because every woman needs somewhere to be warm, to be whole. On the first anniversary of her ownership, Alana hosted a garden party. No pearls, no name cards, just soul food, jazz, and a sky full of stars. A little girl tugged on her dress and asked, "Are you the lady who bought the big house?" Alana smiled. "No, baby," she said. "I didn't buy it. I reclaimed it." And that night, when the guests were gone and the candles burned low, Alana stood in front of the fireplace, looked up at her own eyes staring back from the golden frame. She didn't smile, didn't cry. She just breathed, deep, because this wasn't just her home. It was proof that resilience isn't loud. It's not always dramatic. Sometimes it's a woman standing in a room she wasn't welcome in and saying, without a single word, "I belong." If this story touched your heart like it touched mine, leave a word below. Aunt Grace is always here, with stories for souls that been through the fire and came out shining. Until next time, baby, stay warm, stay wise, and never let anyone shrink your crown.